Hello, multi-mashers of the multiverse. Welcome to the Bothy. Welcome to Ralphie Review 1029 extras. Extra content, extra perspective, extra opinion, extra experience in the form of a whisky review. And I'm going to talk about our emotional connections with brands. Because when we go into a shop and buy a bottle of whisky and go home and consume it slowly over the space of a few months, which I hope you do. If you consume it in one night, you're an alcoholic, you've got big trouble, go and seek advice and stop drinking alcohol. Simple as that. Hey, it's tough love. Talking of which, I must give it's not tough love, but just a loving thank you to our provider of the malt mention here, the Brownwater Boys 8304, for their malt mention. There we go. Mashers of the Multiverse. That's a good one. It's nice and whisky specific, and it's got plenty of M words in it. The main words in a malt mention need to be M. It's got to start with M. It's just kind of one of the features in the channels. So, before I go any further, I want to point something out. I'll start with this bottle here. See Arran, Isle of Arran. They bottled their whisky full integrity, and they tell us that it's natural colour and unchill filtered. And see that in the front label. On the front label, nice and big, easy to read, non-chill filtered, natural colour. Have a look, there it is. You can read it yourself. This is very different. I've just reviewed this whisky, which in my opinion was unchill filtered and possibly natural coloured. But there's nothing in the bottle to tell me about it. And on the back of the bottle, rightio, it's got gold writing. Who can read that? Can you read that? Can you read it? I can't read it. And I've got reading glasses on. So I'm looking at the box, and eventually I find it. This happens all the bloody time with Scotch whisky. They keep all the disingenuous flannel information, nice big writing, and the really important stuff for genuine whisky drinkers is almost apologetically hidden away as a footnote. And it says natural colour, unchill filtered. Right, there it is there. Can you read that? Can you read? I'll hold it closer. Can you read it yet? I'll hold it closer. Now can you read it? It's really quite frustrating. It's annoying, and frankly, Glenturret should know better. It's not as if they're a corporate multinational brand that are basically trying to persuade customers that they're only consumers and should shut up and just accept the marketing flannel. Anyway, time for a wee whisky. I've known about Glenturret for many, many years. Glenturret first cropped up in a pub conversation in a small bar in an area of Glasgow called Partick. And it was to do with a couple of the ladies that used to come into the bar, and they were gin and tonic people. They'd gone to this wee distillery up in the Highlands because they'd gone for a day out from Glasgow. So about 4 of them had bundled into a car, and they went up to a wee distillery somewhere, and they'd gone in, not for the whisky, but because they had a nice tea room. And they wanted an afternoon tea, and they wanted it somewhere that was civil and genteel, and there wasn't kids running about, and there wasn't holiday makers, and it wasn't a load of hassle and disruption. And they went to Crieff, because Crieff is a popular downtown for just walking around. It's a bit like there's a few towns in the central Highlands of Scotland, Perth's another example that people from Edinburgh or Glasgow will go to these towns because it's a nice day out. It's within easy travelling distance, and particularly if you're from Glasgow, it's been almost tradition that you'd go to a place called Callander, where you'll find Deanston Distillery. But right in the middle, you've got Crieff, the quaint place. It's nice and rural and rustic and traditional and old-fashioned and very Scottish. And you've got Glenturret Distillery there. So they'd gone in for the afternoon tea and they were absolutely waxing lyrical about it and saying how the scones were homemade scones. It was wonderful and they got plenty of cream and it was strawberry jam. Didn't get raspberry jam, they got strawberry jam with their scones. And you know, it's the devil's in the detail and so are the angels. But they had a wonderful day out. So I was intrigued. Oh, Glenturret Distillery, I've never heard of that one. And I thought, I'm going to have to go and visit this place. So it was a few years later I finally got round to it, and I arrived at Glenturret Distillery. Nice old-fashioned place, stone walls, little pagodas on the roof, and it looked the part. And I walked through the front door, and it was all bright lighting. You know that spotlight stuff that you get in modern distilleries? That they're overlit. Well, this was it, but it was kind of half done, and it was kind of too sparse, so it was kind of all light and shadows. And it was called the Famous Grouse Experience. And outside they had this sculpture of the famous grouse, of the grouse bird. And I went in and I got this tour, and it was absolutely awful. I mean, as a genuine whiskey drinker, I thought, I've never had anything like this in my life. That experience. This is so. It's almost as if they're trying to do a Hollywood or a Disney theme park on a very, very, very tight budget. But that was my. And of course, they had the wee bronze statue outside of Towser the cat, and they were very keen to talk about the new cat because the distillery had to have a cat, and it was in the top shelf in the shop, distillery shop, where it couldn't be touched and poked and prodded and photographed by tourists. So the poor thing was just keeping out of the way and just wanted to sleep all day and didn't want to catch any mice. But of course it was famous because it had gone into the Guinness Book of World Records, which, you know, any record can go in there. You know, make up one, anyone, you know, balancing dominoes in your nose, How many whiskey bottles can you cram into a telephone box? You know, anything you want. All you have to do is pay them over £1,000 and the rest of it to be put into the book, and then that's you. You've got a world record, and it's a great gimmick, great bit of publicity. And as you can imagine, the World Guinness Book of Records, it's a pretty fat book. In fact, they hardly have room for all the records they've got to contain, and it's very profitable for them. But it was a disappointing experience because I never even got to taste any Glenlivet at all. And I noticed there was a door open and two delightful small stills. And I just went to wander through, and the guy said, "Oh, excuse me, you can't go in there. That's out of bounds." So of course, this was a red rag to a bull to me. You know, a distillery is out of bounds in a distillery visit. WTF? What? This was Edrington, by the way. This is Macallan Group. This is probably reason why I'm so antagonised, even today, by Macallan and Macallan brands. The way I think they're so up their own arse and so disingenuous in the true authentic relationship to what Scotch whisky is. And it's a real shame to see other brands like White and Mackay try and follow in their footsteps with their ridiculous versions of Dalmore. And don't even get me started in Diageo. But let's get back to Glenturret. I had to wait a few years later and that to see a bottle of Glenturret, and it was at 40%, and I'm thinking, why? Just why? You get these amazing distilleries, and then you bottle them at minimum strength, legal minimum strength. And yet what would it cost the distillery to put even an extra 3%, as they do routinely in the American market? In fact, most of the markets around the world. But not in Britain. It's all about customs and excise duty. So you're going to get less than everybody else. You're going to get minimum. And this is just a reputation killer for me. And this is one reason why I've only reviewed 6 Glenturrets over all these years. And more or less half of them have been independent bottlings, just so I can get authentic versions. So it's all credit to the new owners who are they're really upping the game, and it's not hard. It really isn't very hard to up the game when you're taking a premium luxury product, and the previous owners are literally squashing the flavour with chill filtration at 40%. So inevitably, it just affects how we approach a brand, how we prioritise it in our buying list. And Glenturret's always been low. It's a little bit higher now than it used to be because the new owners are kind of upping the game. But it's not that long ago that you look at Longmorn. I've never been able to connect with Longmorn because the owners just dumb it down for their bottlings. And this is common in Scotch whisky. The Scotch whisky industry wants to deny the existence of their true enthusiastic customer because I think the industry is intimidated by them, intimidated by their knowledge, their brand awareness. And another thing they're intimidated by is their connectivity to the brand. The marketing departments, they find this awkward. They don't have control of it. And I want to go further with this. This is important. You see, your passive whisky consumer only ever sees the bottle, only ever sees the brand logo, only ever buys the bottle because it's Scotch, and therefore they don't know much about it. They're not going to buy another bottle for a long time because it's just a birthday present or to see in the new year. And therefore they're happy with the experience because they're going to put it into a tumbler with a load of ice. In other words, they're going to kill the flavour because that's what you do with Scotch whisky, because that's what you see in the adverts, that's what you see in the old movies. It's always been the way. Why change it? Or they'll go into a bar and they'll get their whisky in a tumbler and say, do you want soda with that? And even the sodas now, they're not proper sodas. They're these flat, lifeless, little tiny mini bottles where as soon as they open them, they're as flat as a pancake because the producers of soft sparkling drinks don't use as much carbon dioxide in the production as they used to. Because it's not that long ago. I remember, I was there when sparkling drinks actually sparkled. They really sparkled because they had more gas in them. Today, not so much. Why? To cut costs. Why? Because the consumers will just shut up, accept it, put up and get on with it. It's a bit of a rant in there, mock mates. I love these rants. It's because I care. And it reminds me that I care. And the thing is, with the whisky customer, the real customer, the real enthusiast, the people who actually know about whisky, and this is a growing group of people who are congregating online, specifically online, because it's where the real information is, the real knowledge is to be found. Not in books and magazines, not anymore. And you get this alternative narrative which completely disrupts the marketing of products. People know that the real whisky enthusiast, the repeat buyer, the invested whisky customer who spends proportionally a lot more money, and unfortunately for some of the people in the distillery, are a considerably growing group of people globally. In other words, as the whisky industry to go into developing markets. They already find that the hardcore whiskey enthusiast is already there, controlling the narrative. So when they come in with their, long slumbering years and there's only 3 simple ingredients BS, they just get blown out of the water. They actually get embarrassed, and they should be, because the orthodox narrative is just so naive and so poorly informed for the modern market. And it's a big deal these days. Things are changing so fast, and the whiskey enthusiasts, you see, they don't just know the bottles. They know the online conversation around these bottles. They know the different versions of the bottling because they've been to whiskey festivals. They know the reception they got at the table from the brand ambassadors and from the people who actually work at the distillery talking to them. And therefore you get a much more... You're way beyond the simple buy and sell narrative that's marketing led. That's becoming irrelevant because it's now connection led. It's connection from previous experience from buying the bottles, going to whiskey festivals, the online conversation relating to specific brands, the quality of independent bottlings from specific brands, the consistency from batch to batch of official bottlings, the consistency and quality through the age ranges and the quality of the non-age statement. All this adds up to a much more complex interaction between the real enthusiast, the customer, and the whiskey itself. And then inevitably, when we have any sort of bad experience in the past, we can't really let it go because alcohol is an emotional, rational, complex experience. When we're tasting that whiskey, we have all the previous connectivity. When we maybe visited the distillery and we had a great tour or a poor quality tour, we went into, say, the still room and someone had a mobile phone in the hand and the tour guide said, "Oh, you can't put it away, you can't use mobile phones or the place will blow up." Absolute crap. See if you took out a mobile phone in a distillery and the place was going to blow up. Let me tell you right now, it wouldn't be even open to the public. It wouldn't be allowed. This is some bureaucratic nonsense that somehow if there's an escape of spirit from the still, that, a spark is going to light it. There's more chance of you getting a spark off the heels of your shoes walking around the distillery than coming off your mobile phone, because they've all got sealed batteries these days. And yet nobody's upgraded the narrative for the tour guides. It's such a shame. As time goes on, the complexity of our association gets more complex. This is why you'll find, when you're really experienced with whiskey, that you have this real fondness for some brands, but you're not averse to other brands, but the presence isn't a priority in your radar. We tend to, as time goes on, we keep going back to the brands that have never let us down in any way. That's what we do. And this is why you have brands like, I don't have to name them, just go to the online Scotch Whisky Awards and you'll see the brands that have got traction, have really invested in post-marketing conversation. So this is it. I'm going to conclude with this now. It's about getting beyond traditional marketing, which now is increasingly redundant, because we're now entering the age where advertising for alcohol is going to go the way of advertising for cigarettes. It's going to be banned. And any distillery that wants to have any sort of connectivity, they need to have online content. They need to have a really effective portal, a simple portal, an easy access portal that doesn't demand your age and the year you were born and the month you were born, and it just has a simple button that says, are you of legal age to drink in your country? Yes, no. If it's no, away you go. If it's yes, welcome. Press the button once. Enter in, right. Here's your 6 options. Enjoy. 6 simple options. Go and check out our videos, it will say. Here's our YouTube videos. It's early days yet, but it's ironic now that the most effective consultants for any distillery anywhere in the world are their best customers. The customers know more about the brand than the consultants. The customers know more about the future messaging of whisky than consultants. And see, at the end of it all, your whisky anorak, your whisky enthusiast, they won't even charge you for it. The consultants will take big fat mega fees for it and deliver very little in return. And that's the way it is. We all connect, as time goes on, more complex relationships with all the different whiskies and brands and rums and bourbons and cognacs and armagnacs. And it's all from previous emotional exchanges every time we connect with the brand, whether in the glass or whether in festivals and festivals and Speyside whisky festivals, or going to master classes or meeting a brand ambassador. Was the person just chatty, or did the person start lecturing you in their brand? Did the person tell you that they never drink any other branded whisky, they only drink their own brand because it's the best in the world, blah, 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 blah. At which point you're just walking away. Just walking away. And it's easy for us to do because we're the customer. We don't owe any distillery anything. We don't owe them our loyalty. They earn our loyalty. And to do so, they have to invest in us. And it's not rocket science. It's 46% unchill filtered, natural colour. State it. State it. Simple presentation. Environmentally sensitive. No BS. Nice distinctive label. Bit of coloured glass. Bit of recycled glass. Nice shaped bottle. That's all you really need. And then join the forums. Just contribute to the forums. Listen to what people are saying. And distilleries, by the way, that are trying to hand out free whiskey. Oh boy. I'm going to talk about this in our forthcoming extras because it's turning into an absolute disaster for them. And we'll leave it at that. This has been a bit of a ramble, malt mates. But hey, it's something I do a lot of on my channel because frankly it works. It's really just a virtual conversation that we'd have if we were sitting in a bar somewhere, sitting in a pub, standing in the corner of a whisky festival. This is the conversations that go on. This is what really happens. And now it's migrating onto the internet. And I have to say, I'm absolutely delighted that we're still broadcasting from the Bothy, somewhere in the middle of the Irish scene. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for being a malt mate. Thank you for being whisky curious and just coming along to this quiet little channel and giving me a little bit of your precious time. I do appreciate it, by the way. So if you haven't subscribed, please do. And we'll keep you up to date with lots of diverse practical whisky reviews. The majority of which, virtually the whole majority, because I haven't accepted a free bottle in 8 years? 8 years. In fact, it'd be just easier to say I never do, because it keeps it so much simpler and keeps it much more independent. And there you have it. I'm Ralphie, over and out.